Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving deep into the surprisingly delicate world of medicinal leeches. A brand new scientific study has just come out, and it reveals just how much temperature matters to these fascinating creatures. And trust me, some of the results are genuinely shocking. Let's get right into it. So, just so you know where all this is coming from, everything we're about to cover is straight from a peer-reviewed research paper, hot off the press from the journal Aquaculture International. This isn't just guesswork. It's the cutting-edge science behind how we can better understand and, well, raise these super important animals. Okay, I know what you might be thinking. When I say leech, your mind probably jumps straight to horror movies or some kind of swampy nightmare, right? But what if I told you they're actually medical marvels? The truth is they're incredibly valuable, and we're just now starting to realize how much we need to protect them. So, let's start by pulling back the curtain on their secret world. It's time to understand why they're so much more than just simple parasites. Their role in both medicine and the environment? Absolutely critical. I mean, the versatility of these little guys is just incredible. Their saliva has compounds that are used in everything from reattaching limbs in microsurgery to treating really complex diseases. They're also used in veterinary care, their secretions are valuable in cosmetics, and out in the wild, they're a vital part of the freshwater food web. They really are nature's little helpers. And here's the catch. All that growing demand has led to overcollection. You combine that with habitat loss, and suddenly, wild leech populations are in some serious trouble. This makes leech farming, or aquaculture, not just a business, but a really crucial conservation effort. But as you'll see, farming them effectively is a real challenge. Which brings us to the first huge puzzle the researchers decided to tackle: temperature. See, just like for us, there's a just right temperature for leeches, a Goldilocks zone where they can really thrive. And finding it, that's step one for any successful farm. So the scientists set up a pretty straightforward experiment. They took groups of young leeches and raised them in tanks at 4 totally different temperatures: a cool 15 degrees Celsius, a moderate 20 and 25, and a pretty warm 30 degrees. Then they just sat back and watched to see what happened to their growth and their health. Now, before we get to the juicy results, we need to understand how scientists figured out the leech's secret language of stress. A key word here is regurgitation. For a leech, this is a major red flag. When they throw up their last meal, it is a crystal clear sign that they are under serious stress and the conditions are all wrong. It's the first thing researchers look for. And wow, this chart just says it all. At a cool 15 degrees, only about 2% of the leeches were unhealthy. Barely any. But look what happens when you crank the heat all the way up to 30 degrees. More than a quarter of them became unhealthy. That is a massive jump, and it shows you just how stressful high temperatures are for them. And believe it or not, it gets worse. That heat stress didn't just make them sick. At 30 degrees, the leeches started turning on each other. Yeah, cases of cannibalism started popping up. And maybe even more dramatically, their growth just stopped. Flatlined. They were using every bit of energy they had just to survive, with nothing left over to actually grow. So after analyzing all of that data on growth and health, the researchers finally pinpointed the sweet spot. The ideal temperature range for farming these medicinal leeches is incredibly specific, somewhere between 18.7 and 19.7 degrees Celsius. That, right there, is their Goldilocks zone. Okay, so puzzle 1 is solved. But the researchers didn't stop there. They introduced a really fascinating twist by looking at what happens when the temperature changes suddenly, what's called a thermal shock. And the results are not what you'd expect at all. I mean, think about it. If you're running a leech farm, you have to change their water all the time. So what happens if that new water is colder, or maybe a bit warmer? Does that sudden shock cause problems? That was the next big question they had to answer. And the results were completely split, like night and day. A sudden hot shock, making the water warmer, was terrible for them. It caused more stress, more sickness, and had zero positive effects. But a cold shock, making the water suddenly colder, had the exact opposite effect. It actually reduced all those stress signs like regurgitation and cannibalism and led to more healthy leeches. So, how much healthier are we talking? Well, get this. In the group that got the most extreme cold shock, a sudden drop of 15 degrees, a staggering 76% of the leeches stayed perfectly healthy. This finding just turns our whole idea of shock completely on its head. A little bit of the right kind of stress was actually good for them. And this wasn't some fluke either. The scientists were so confident about this that they put it right there in their conclusion. This is a direct quote from the paper. Cold thermal shock may have beneficial effects on leech health. This is a total game changer for the entire leech farming industry. So, we've got the ideal temperature and this shocking discovery about cold water. What does all of this mean in the real world, for the leeches and for us? Let's break down the big takeaways. Well, this research basically gives us a clear three-step playbook for leech farmers. First, keep the water in that perfect Goldilocks zone. Second, be super careful to avoid warming the water up suddenly when you change it. And third, embrace the cold. A cool splash of fresh water isn't something to be afraid of. It might just be the secret to a healthier, happier leech farm. But this goes way beyond the farm. This study has huge implications for conservation. Understanding just how sensitive leeches are to high temperatures gives us a critical warning about what global warming could do to their natural habitats. As ponds and streams around the world heat up, wild leeches could face the same fate as those poor guys in the 30-degree lab tanks. And that leaves us with one last really important question. This study gives us the tools to help protect one specific species through better farming and conservation, but it's also a powerful reminder. As our entire planet warms up, how can we apply this same kind of detailed, focused science to protect all of nature's smallest and often most surprising little helpers? Thanks for joining me.